1.2. Roger, ball. We've got 25 knots down the angle.
They did a physiology study of Navy pilots during actual combat missions. They measured things like pulse rate, heartbeat, adrenaline flow, and breathing patterns. And they found that the needle quivered most when the pilots came back to land on the deck of the aircraft carrier. Putting 20 tons of airplane on a patch of heaving, rolling carrier deck created more tension and pressure than dodging surface-to-air missiles, even among the most experienced pilots. It's probably the single biggest test of airmanship, and flight crews make no pretense about it either. Even with the self-confidence inherent in all good pilots, men who fly their aircraft to the limits of its performance and stake their lives on their own flying ability, even these pilots long remember their carrier landings. Especially in bad weather, with ceilings down to 100 feet, visibility maybe half a mile, and you're making a carrier control approach. Although you're under positive control of the ship at all times, except for the final phase when the landing signal officer takes over, it's the most demanding kind of flying. At night, it's even tougher. You're looking for a pattern of light about 3/4 of a mile ahead to set up your approach. If you hit a gust of wind, the airplane will climb or descend on you, and you've got to make a glide slope correction, or go around again. Sometimes it's so black you can't believe it. No stars, no moon, and you're hundreds of miles at sea. With no reference, you lose all depth perception. It's as if you were going down a mine shaft or into a closet and closing the door behind you. It's a special kind of flying that takes a special kind of pilot and a special kind of airplane. It takes intensive training, experience, and confidence. An accommodation of man and machine. A blending of skill and structure. Navy pilots and airplanes with sea legs. Much has been written of the Carrier Task Force and the evolution of the carrier itself as a self-sustaining weapon system that is the heart of naval aviation. A city at sea with over 5,000 men, enough supplies to last 6 months to a year, and over 80 aircraft filling a variety of roles that continues to grow in the face of new technologies and new threats. With the current CV concept, which combines attack and ASW capabilities in a single hull, today's carriers must handle a variety of aircraft, all of which require different staff expertise, more spares and ground support equipment. Carriers have gotten bigger, of course, but so have the aircraft. The Essex class has been replaced by the larger Forrestal class and nuclear carriers. F-4s are gradually being replaced by F-14s. Aircraft and platform enhance and at the same time limit each other. Yet the fact remains that Navy aircraft do not compromise performance for compatibility with the carrier. Consider that the Navy F-4 and A-7 have been eminently successful as primary weapon systems for the U.S. Air Force. On the other hand, no aircraft designed for land operations has ever been converted for carrier duty. It takes more than a tailhook to earn your sea legs. No matter what its mission or performance, a carrier aircraft is a special breed. For one thing, it's built to survive in an environment land-based aircraft were never designed to tolerate. Launched from a steam-powered catapult that induces an acceleration loading better than 5 times the force of gravity, and yanked off the deck in a couple of 100 feet. As one pilot put it, it's like you're inside a slingshot and you're in tension, waiting. Then they let go and you're shot into space like a little BB. You go from 0 to 160 knots in 2.5 seconds with no runway left over. Once airborne, performance varies with the specific aircraft and the mission at hand. A typical mix on the CV today calls for 3 attack squadrons, 2 fighter squadrons, early warning, reconnaissance, and electronic countermeasure aircraft, as well as the means to counter the growing submarine threat. It's a total maritime responsibility. Since the carrier operates a safe distance from shore and can move 50 miles or so between launch and recovery, each airplane must carry additional fuel to complete its mission and get back to the ship. And each airplane must also carry enough gas to give pilots a few extra shots at the deck, if need be. Getting back on the carrier is indeed the ultimate challenge. It's precision flying, but no one even pretends to be a soft lander. You fly until the deck comes up, and you hit it in what has loosely been described as a controlled crash, immediately applying full engine power in case you fail to snatch the wire. A 50-ton pull on the tailhook brings the airplane to a jolting halt. Everything wants to keep going forward, and for a second or two you think it will. But the backlash quickly nulls itself out. That's the way it was designed. A carrier airplane is a rigid structure, but like all structures, distorts under load. It twists and bends every time it leaves the deck and every time it returns. You can't see it, but when the landing gear hits, the whole fuselage bends momentarily under the impact, and the wing tips want to reach down to the deck. The gear itself literally springs back after impact and imparts a reverse loading on the structure. Quite a difference from land-based aircraft, which descend at a reasonably flat angle and flare into a smooth landing with runway in front of them as far as the eye can see, and a little extra help when you need it. By comparison, a carrier landing calls for a slow, steep approach with engines and flight systems synchronized for maximum controllability. Exceptional over-the-nose visibility is essential to pick out the visual landing aid system, or meatball, and to establish the correct lineup so critical for safe landing. The aircraft must also be especially responsive to changes in thrust and attitude. And slow approach speeds are desirable because they give the pilot more time to make corrections. Coming in at 115 knots instead of 140, say, might not seem like much. But the fact is, every knot counts, and slower is safer. Carrier airplanes use about 10% of the runway required by land-based aircraft and are designed to hit the deck at sink speeds up to 25 feet per second. About 3 times the speed and 9 times the impact energy of a typical land-based aircraft. To take these kinds of loads requires a heavy-duty landing gear and supporting structure, an arresting hook system integrated with the fuselage to withstand a deceleration force up to 6 Gs on some aircraft, and a fatigue life that will see the entire structure safely through some 6,000 carrier landings. Before ever getting to the carrier, of course, individual airplanes are subjected to rigorous static, fatigue, and dynamic tests to verify structural integrity from zero load to failure. Then flight testing, low-speed handling, touch and goes, high-speed cruise, and maneuvering through the aircraft's entire operating envelope. Carrier suitability tests at the Navy facility at Patuxent River, Maryland, and Lakehurst, New Jersey, include everything from catapult launches and arrested landings at various conditions and engaging speeds to barricade arrestments. For all the differences between carrier and land-based aircraft, it's hard to tell one from the other by just looking. Internal design and structure separate the two more than anything else, except for a few things like the arresting hook, maybe the canted windshield, launch bar, and holdback links. But essentially, it's a matter of overall inherent strength. And oh yes, the wings fold on most carrier aircraft. With just so much square footage to work with, everything that goes on a carrier, including the aircraft, is packaged as compactly as possible. Space is always a problem, particularly when it comes to maintenance, most of which is confined to a hangar deck that precludes the use of much of the big support and handling equipment found at a typical airport. In such tight quarters, easy access becomes even more critical to simplify inspections and minimize downtime. There are many other features peculiar to carrier aircraft. Maintaining static balance, for example, to prevent tip-back during deck handling. Providing integral crew boarding features to eliminate ladders and work stands on the deck. Using special alloys and sealants to protect the aircraft against the high humidity and salt spray environment so conducive to corrosion. Designing engine inlets to minimize ingestion of hot catapult steam. And ejection seats that afford safe egress at ground level and zero speed. In terms of performance, the requirement to fly slowly demands good handling characteristics. The high lift devices and moderate wing loading, that is, the bigger wing essential to lower speeds, also means better than average maneuverability. The payoff? An all-weather attack bomber like the A-6 can handle itself pretty well in a tight turn. Similarly, the F-14 uses a straight, unswept wing to achieve low takeoff and landing speeds and low-speed maneuverability. And a highly swept wing for supersonic flight. As a result, the Navy has an airplane designed for fleet defense, yet equally effective for close-in air-to-air combat. Of course, no aircraft with sea legs is going to be effective without people with sea legs to manage the system. The right people in the right place at the right time. From the first drawings off the board, to the first operating system, to the first carrier landing, and into an environment that might well be the best organized and most efficient military system ever put together. It's the aircraft that make the carrier viable, but it's the pilots who pay it off. And right from the start, Navy tailhook pilots think they're better than anyone else, and who's to say they're not? Yet they're only as good as the men who maintain the aircraft. The technicians who groom the weapons gear, the mechanics who watch over the engines, the plane captains who see that they're ready for flight, the handling officer who spots them on the deck, and the air boss who tells them when to come and when to go. It's a community like no other. Dedicated men putting their skills on the line every day, moving these airplanes with sea legs on and off the ship in a continuing readiness.
For all the hopes of detente, shuttle diplomacy, new treaties and trade agreements, conflicts remain common among the world's nations, and peace often seems but a respite between wars. We continue to hope, of course, to work at peace and conciliation, perhaps harder than we ever have before. But we work at being prepared, too. For as we have come to learn, strength is the best deterrent to war, and to be prepared the only measure of our determination. Thus, we maintain a vigilance so intense, we are literally watching the world from thousands of outposts on land and sea, with a carrier task force assuming a more critical role now as fewer foreign bases and fewer foreign ports remain open to us.
Overseas bases have become somewhat tenuous in many circumstances and many places in the world where we have seen governments change, we've seen treaties not be followed through with, and we have lost some overseas bases. Very, very valuable assets in projecting our national interest throughout the world. As we see this happening, it becomes very apparent that the Carrier Task Force represents the only fallback, the only position that the United States has in order to be able to project our national power.
When you're talking about an attack aircraft carrier, you're talking about a very heavy instrument of national policy, and it's got a variety of roles which it has to fulfill and which it is indeed capable of fulfilling. But it must be remembered that the primary mission of this carrier is to project United States foreign policy in an offensive role, should it be necessary, in the 6th Fleet, the 7th Fleet, or wherever it's called upon to do so.
Once that carrier is launched, once he leaves on a deployment, the carrier becomes an integral floating base that is instantly responsive and capable of high-speed transit to anywhere in the world.
To do the job required of the carrier today calls for a combination of different aircraft, different weapon systems within the air wing, a mix effective in a major war or a brush fire, capable of handling surface and subsurface threats, and with aircraft aboard for anti-submarine warfare. It's a self-contained strike force, a marvel of efficiency and flexibility. Power and pursuit packaged in 1,000 feet of rolling deck. For all its capabilities, however, the effectiveness of the carrier is dependent on a total team effort and an understanding among the squadrons that each crew member and each airplane has an integral part to play. A mutual support essential to getting the job done. And in the final analysis, putting bombs on the target is still the primary role of the attack carrier.
There are 3 attack squadrons on this ship that are capable of doing just that, carrying that offensive role to the enemy wherever it might be. And of the 3, as I've said very clearly and unequivocally in my mind, the one that has the greatest capability, the most firepower, has the longest reach, is the A6 squadron on the carrier.
We've considered some of the other airplanes which carry bombs and put them on target, which have the same type of mission the A6 does in general. But the real crux of what the A6 is about is the fact that the A6 can do it any time, and with the A6E, we can do it with a high degree of reliability. It can be a beautiful day, or it can be a foul night where the ceilings are down at 100 feet and the visibility is a half a mile. It doesn't make any difference. And that's why the A6 is worth its salt.
Since the German counteroffensive in the Battle of the Bulge during World War II and enemy success in Korea and Vietnam, bad weather and darkness have been key elements in greatly reducing the advantages of U.S. air power, allowing the enemy to move freely while U.S. planes sat on carrier decks and remote airfields waiting for the weather to clear. With the advent of the A6E intruder, however, effective U.S. air power is available round the clock in any weather conditions. One of a kind in the defense inventory, it is the only aircraft capable of penetrating thick ground fog, heavy rains, or intense cloud cover to detect, identify, and attack fixed or moving enemy targets. Electronically, the A6E is a new airplane with the latest radar, inertial navigation, and computer system, key elements in its all-weather tracking capability. But the first intruder, the A6A, flew early in the 1960s and made its mark in Vietnam. Since then, the airplane has gone through an extensive product development program so that today it is a most versatile weapon system, capable of leading other aircraft into target areas and handling close air support, interdiction, and deep strike missions, with a bomb load second only to the B-52. And with a new CV concept, the A6E is now being used as an ASW vehicle as well. For the carrier, where deck space is always a problem, the multi-mission capability of the A6E is a distinct advantage in helping to blend the overall functions of the carrier air wing to make the carrier more self-sufficient and the CV a more potent force than ever before for the war at sea and in support of amphibious operations. In coordinated assaults with the Marines, Air Force, and Army, Navy ships help put landing forces on the beach, while Joint Tactical Air Power provides essential air defense, reconnaissance, and close support. During the first 48 hours or so, air support is the responsibility of Air Force and Navy aircraft, as directed by the strike force, or in response to specific requests against specific targets. Once the beachhead is established, close air support is turned over to the Marines. Operating a shipboard-like environment on land, taking advantage of abandoned airfields when they exist, or setting up portable landing strips, effective air support can be provided on a moment's notice, where it's needed, when it's needed. By keying a radar beacon on the ground with the computer system of the A6E, close air support can be carried out with an accuracy in air-to-ground weapons that was previously unattainable with a non-radar significant target. To take full advantage of the system's capabilities, Marines have put pilots in the field as forward air controllers to direct beacon operations.
Proceed inbound to the following grid, 9036378. Advise whenever you copy target brief, over.
Roger, we're proceeding 9036378, and go ahead with your brief.
Roger, Slang 17, RABFAC brief follows.
One of the things that's impressed me most with the United States Marine Corps has been its air support, not so much the aircraft as their ability to get the aircraft onto the target. And the forward air controllers know their business.
Charlie 17, looking good.
And they know the air side and they know the ground side, and therefore the coordination is extremely good. And the response from the aircraft is good because they're talking to people of their own type.
You put a pilot on the ground, and you've got air eyes on the ground directing the aircraft. The RABFAC itself is kind of fantastic because it's pretty frustrating when you get out there. You've got the aircraft, you've got the enemy situation developing, but you haven't got the weather to get any kind of ordnance on the target. What this RABFAC will do for you, either at night when it's essentially IFR condition or in cloudy weather where you can't see the ground, you can load up a RABFAC and essentially it's just a transponder, and he can set it up, and with his radar in the A6, the Grumman A6, he can paint that beacon. You can give him the important information, and he can, from that beacon, get an offset bombing point, pick it up, and destroy the enemy without ever seeing them.
We were getting aircraft with ordnance on the target not more than 33 minutes after the FAC had the original mission. And that's going all the way through, up to the desk. The bird is coming over, making contact, being passed out to the forward air controllers, running the strike, and the ordnance on the ground in 33 minutes. These guys will put them anywhere you want them. It's just a question of how close to you do you dare put it.
The accuracy is just as accurate as the offset information is given to us. We've done live beacon hops out of here on a hot pad with the E-system, and our VDA is 90 over 100, and our hits are 10, 20 feet.
We can get 6 bombs to go out on a practice target. With the average aviator and the average BM in the squadron, reliability and consistency of the system, we can almost guarantee a CEP of 0 on straight path attacks. Almost guarantee that 3 of those bombs are going to be bullseye.
There's no guarantee that with the tightest E system in the world, that if you're wrapped up like that, dodging a SAM or AAA or something, when you're coming over a target, you're obviously in a real hot area, like over downtown or something like that, you're not going to be making more than 1 pass. So your CEP is going to be predicated in an actual combat environment by what actually is happening over the target. I mean, we don't bomb like old Second World War Gunslover Schlesselhagen or whatever those B-29s did, you know.
Yeah, most of our runs were single passes.
Single passes, depending on where you were.
In Vietnam, we found that our best deal was to run in as low as possible. And someone told me when I got there, you'd be running in at 700 feet. And I said, well, you're nuts. I'm not going to be at 700 feet. And the next thing, I found myself pushing 300 feet. And literally just popping up at the last minute, just high enough to get out of the last factor. And that's what we did. And of course, with the SA-6, it's going to be a little bit different because no matter what altitude you're at, the SAM's going to be able to get you. So we might move it up higher. I don't know.
You don't know too much about the SA-6. We know we can defeat a MiG-17 by just outrunning the sun. We know that we can outmaneuver a 21 below 15,000 feet.
No airplane is all things for all missions, of course. Performance varies with design parameters and the mission at hand. DC-3s outfitted with Gatling guns had their place in Vietnam, but there are better ways to do the job. And when one airplane, like the A-6, is called upon to do several different missions, somebody has to back off and say, I can do with less of this, but I've got to have more of that, and be ready to pay for it.
Anytime you talk performance in an aircraft, you're talking about compromise, which are trade-offs depending on what you're looking for in the airplane. An attack airplane is designed for long-range, heavy payload, as opposed to a fighter aircraft, which has got to have a high-speed capability and, in most cases, a better turning radius.
It's fairly easy to make one that goes fast. It's difficult to make one that goes very fast and carries a large external payload. The designers of the A-6 made a compromise, but by making that compromise, we are able to carry a large weapons load. We can carry 15,000 pounds of external stores, and we can carry it pretty well to the fringes of the envelope. The A-6 is a very stable airplane, and as you learn in elementary aerodynamics, when you get that stability, you trade off some maneuverability. Yet the A-6 is very maneuverable. You've got heavy stick forces. You feel like you might be driving a Mack truck as compared to some more maneuverable airplanes, but it will maneuver, and it'll put bombs on target in any condition.
It maintains its energy. If you're doing 360 knots running in on a target for a pop-up attack, you can CAV it and pull up, and you'll have 300 knots for the rolling. You'll have that airspeed. You've got a 10,000, deck to 10,000 foot pop-up capability with about a 3 to 4 mile standoff. Easily, and still have good rolling airspeed.
I really don't think that there's anybody around that can take as much as we can, as far as we can, and stay as long as we can, and put it on the target with the accuracy that the A-6 can deliver the ordnance and get home with enough gas left to go to an alternate.
Performance is only part of the story. The hottest airplane in the inventory isn't worth the hangar space it occupies if you can't rely on it consistently. And anytime you're dealing with a sophisticated weapon system, you're faced with problems of availability and maintainability. Readiness is what it's all about. Pilots never want to miss a sortie, and maintenance personnel pride themselves on quick turnarounds to meet demanding flight schedules. With the system reliability of the A-6E, aircraft can be turned around in 45 minutes. And intruder squadrons are making more sortie commitments with total weapon system capability. A built-in test system helps the crew determine status of the various A-6E weapon system components in a matter of minutes. A complete operational check can be accomplished in less than half an hour. Go, no-go in under 15 minutes. The crew knows exactly what they have to work with before they take off. And the bombardier navigator is often able to troubleshoot in-flight malfunctions while in the air, providing a more meaningful debrief back on the deck. To package this kind of capability in one aircraft, and then to keep that aircraft an effective fighting machine over the years in the face of constantly changing technologies and new threats, takes a lot of airplane to start with, and a continuous program of product improvement. Even now, the A6E has improved means for acquiring and identifying targets, and for delivering weapons with greater accuracy than ever before, at night and in any weather conditions. A tram version of the intruder with a forward-looking infrared display, or FLIR, provides television-like pictures of targets that can't be seen by the unaided eye, nor sharply delineated by the sweeping now you see it, now you don't image on a typical radar scope. Using temperature differences to generate the display, FLIR can help A6 crew members target an enemy tank, a ship's waterline or concealed cargo, and deliver smart laser-guided weapons. Even non-radar significant road patterns and plowed fields can be clearly distinguished. The A6E is also being equipped to deliver the standoff Condor missile, a self-navigating, television-guided system effective at long range against ship and land-based targets. The unmatched versatility of the A6E and its seemingly endless potential for assuming still greater capabilities is in keeping with the basic design considerations for the aircraft. A flexible weapon system, effective in a limited war or an all-out offensive.
There's always been a lot of discussion, I think, about the virtues of a very cheap air-to-ground tactical airplane as opposed to the much more expensive all-weather, all-purpose, multi-mission aircraft such as the A6 is. I think we proved without question in Southeast Asia the value and the requirement for a more sophisticated, more capable aircraft than what perhaps the cheapest version we can put on a carrier deck would provide. We proved it nightly from all the carriers in the 7th Fleet, when A6s were often the only tactical aircraft flying over North Vietnam, and that includes the Air Force as well.
The aircraft is a super airplane. I'm less emotional about the airplane than some, I think. A machine is a machine, and I don't ascribe a personality to it or anything like that. It's a machine, and if you understand the way it works, and it's going to break sometimes, and it's going to work well sometimes. If it's well designed, it'll work most of the time. The A6E is such a machine for the all-weather mission.
It can do anything. Daylight VFR to the most worst night in the world. You can still go out and hit a target. If there's anything we've got to keep in mind with the A6E is the fact that we have an untapped resource here. We've got to eliminate the tunnel vision, especially in marine close air employment. We've got to eliminate tunnel vision and allow the development of new tactics, because the A6E has a reliability that was virtually undreamed of 2 years ago, and a versatility. We haven't found anywhere near all the possible uses for it.
And there's no doubt in my mind, regardless of the hostility that we were involved in, or whatever type of war it was, if it was within striking distance of a carrier, the A6 would be carrying the war to the front at night and in all weather conditions.
Marine Force. A combat outfit built around firepower. The mission is simple and uncomplicated. To be ready at all times to seize and defend real estate. The traditional spearhead and heart of the Fleet Marine Force has been, is now, and always will be the rifle. But what has changed radically over the years are the methods employed to put him where the action is. Keep him supplied. And to support him in combat. One of the most effective ways this is being done today is through the efforts of marine aviation, indispensable members of the modern combat team. Through them, the Marine on the beach, the Marine in the jungle receives This is the home of a Marine Air Group. Don't let the sprawling inventory of hangars and shops make you think it's a landlocked institution. This group is a flexible task organization, capable of sustaining itself independently in a combat situation anywhere in the world. The group's mission is carried out by individual squadrons, each one a specialist in rendering a particular type of service. Each squadron works hard to maintain its proficiency. You do the job again and again. It looks simple now, but this pilot may one day lift artillery or evacuate a wounded Marine in the midst of battle. The pilot, in the jarring environment of war, will rely upon the training and the instinct he had developed through countless exercises no different than this. For the air group to be ready to do its job, whenever assigned, it had to be designed with a high degree of built-in mobility. Mobility means portability. You take with you the gear you need to do the job. And that includes such items of hardware as this field arresting gear, a key component in the prefabricated airfields that precede, sometimes by only hours, the air groups that will use them. These Marines who serve with the group's airbase squadron know full well that it takes more than planes and pilots to provide air support. Someone must undertake the necessary but often unglamorous jobs of putting the planes in the air and getting them back down again. Equally important to the air group's mission are these Marines, serving in the darkness of the Tactical Air Operations Center. Electronically, they follow the pilot into battle. They may be separated by miles of sky and jungle, but they are continuously linked by radio and radar. Together, they form a tightly coordinated fighting team. Also following the pilot into battle are the skill and experience of the Marines who practice today's very sophisticated art of keeping planes in the air. The days of baling wire and canvas patches have been relegated to the archives. Today's maintenance man is a specialist, requiring a high degree of proficiency to keep these complex machines always on the go. Some Marine squadrons specialize in air-to-air refueling. This KC-130 Hercules is an airborne tanker setting out to rendezvous with a formation of thirsty jets. Having enough fuel for long hops is basic to the Marine's mission. He threads a needle at 220 knots. It's an understatement to say this evolution requires a fine degree of control, matched by an adequate supply of cool nerve. So they learn, they practice, they maintain themselves, and they keep alert. But what does it all lead up to? It could be this, an island that must be seized from a well-entrenched enemy. This task assignment will draw upon every diversified talent in the air group. These helicopter pilots are professionals. It took 18 months of concentrated schooling before they could assume the responsibility of a chair in the squadron's ready room. Jobs like this island will teach them the team concept. For whatever their specialty, choppers, fighters, all-weather attack, they must learn to work together. But with the rifleman on the ground. The first minutes of a thoroughly planned timetable for an assault tick off. The first phase of airborne support is softening up the enemy before the troops hit the soil. This is a job for the Skyhawks, experts in low-level pinpoint attacks, using a variety of weapons. Heavy ordnance loads make it necessary for JATO, the portable pint-sized thrust that gives that extra push needed for takeoff. Shortly after this strike attack moves out, the next phase of the airborne timetable begins. This is the Leatherneck's version of the Trojan horse. It transports the most important weapon in the Marine arsenal, the rifleman. It is this Marine who is the focal point of all that went before. The planning, the support, all the technology and military know-how manifested in the battalion's operation order. Meanwhile, the Skyhawks have arrived on station. They check in with the forward air controller for their mission.
Little John 1-4, this is Blue 1 over Kahnawake at Angels 20, over.
Blue 1, this is Little John 1-4. I have a priority target in the open. Chart Charlie Sierra. Coordinates 9, 6, 3, 4, 6, 7. They are north of me 1,000 yards.
Request napalm, rockets, and bombs. Runs east to west. Over. Roger, Little John. Understand coordinates 963, 467. Runs east to west.
Read back is correct.
Report, rolling.
Not unopposed. The long-range radar at the Tactical Air Operations Center sends out electronic feelers with results.
Seagrape, this is Punchbowl. I have a bogey for you. 70 degrees port at 25 miles vector.
Hard port 310. Bogey is a single. High-speed target.
Heading 180. Angel 40.
Roger, bogey.
Take speed 1.2.
Angels okay.
Roger, Angels okay.
Bogey passing right to left.
Roger, right to left. Contact 10 starboard 6 miles.
Roger, that is your bogey. Break away, heading
090.
This is Seagrape. Weather. Box away. Splash 1 bogey.
With the ground neutralized and the air above it momentarily cleared, the choppers seek out their landing zones. This calls for the closest coordination between the Skyhawks and the helicopter flight leader.
lock, 2,000 yards my position. Over.
Roger. Rolling in.
The first wave of troops land with minimum opposition. The effectiveness of the Skyhawks that preceded them buys them the needed time to dig in and grab a toehold. By the time the second wave disembarks, enemy mortar positions have zeroed in. But it's too late now. The vertical assault phase has been completed. The Fleet Marine Force has landed. Can be only epilogue, the wrap-up, the house-cleaning chores that still need to be done. The Marines are on the beach, and as long as work remains, there will be Marines in the air. Close air support comes in many forms. Each piece of hardware is designed to take on a specific task. A smooth, professional performance comes from the merger of man and machine, the union of intensive training and advanced technology. Pilot and plane working together as a single unit. The air group is a composite of many men, many machines, each with its own job, yet each serving as a part of a greater mission. The accumulative result of their efforts is support from the sky. An essential, vital, and ever-expanding element of the United States Marine Corps.